friends. Thank you for joining us for episode 3 of Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast about the Audubon Park Garden District in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Michael Lothrop, and today we'll be speaking with Jennifer Marvel, the Executive Director for APGD's Main Street organization. In 2016, the district was honored to receive the Great American Main Street Award, also known as GAMSA, for its role in the preservation and revitalization efforts which have transformed the district into a destination neighborhood. Along with being the city's first certified eco-district, Audubon Park is a cultural hub, a leader in promoting locally sourced and sustainable foodways, with a thriving independent business district. For more information, please visit us at helloapgd.com. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or you'd like to be a sponsor, please feel free to message me on Instagram at helloapgdpod. Thank you for listening. I am here with Misty the dog and Jennifer Marvel, who is the Executive Director of the Main Street organization for the Audubon Park Garden District. Hello, Jen.
Hey, Mike.
So you and I work together on the board of directors. It's been a number of years now. I can't remember exactly how many years, but that's a good thing. We always we're not keeping track, and it seems like forever, but also, it feels new all the time. When you're telling somebody about the Main Street organization, how do you describe it to them?
As far as our program goes, I tell people that we are here to support the small businesses along Corinne Drive, but that we're so small that we do a lot with the community. So a lot of residents think of us as their homeowners association, and kind of all things sort of wrapped up into one. And then depending on where they're at, like I have relatives in Miami, and I'm like, it's like a tiny Wynwood, kind of. So yeah, it kind of depends on the audience and who's asking the question, because we do so much. It's hard to encapsulate into a couple sentences. Sure.
And even as we kind of redefine it as a program itself, we're supported by on a national level, but then on the city level, and we're co-funded by the city. The mission essentially is about kind of historic preservation and kind of keeping the neighborhood, business district, and, for residents, kind of everything going in the right direction. It's like good and getting better kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. The Main Street program actually came out of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. They discovered that you can't save historically significant commercial properties on Main Street if no one can earn a living on the first floor selling retail or services. And so Mary Means actually early on in her career with the National Trust came up with the idea of Main Street, and that they would do historic preservation-based economic development. And they would create this program and these systems where they would work with small businesses on promotion, graphic design, signage, green up, that kind of thing, to help keep those businesses operating and successful. And it kind of took off from there. So that's kind of the history in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. During a pandemic, especially, when we are a district of almost 100% small business, our retail establishments here in our restaurants, and even our yoga studio, salons. It's kind of everything that the pandemic kind of affected. We've tried to work with our businesses and make sure that they can stay afloat during this difficult time. What kind of things did you find to be helpful in lending support for the businesses?
It's kind of interesting looking back on it, just to give us a small plug, because the national program kind of tracked businesses that were going out that didn't survive the pandemic. And the loss of businesses was significantly less if you were in a Main Street program. So I don't remember the numbers offhand. I'd have to find it, but they did find that that was true. Having dedicated paid staff at the grassroots level to help guide businesses to the resources that they could use was very beneficial in keeping doors open. And for us, because everyone was just in a state of shock once, the economy shut down, all of the Main Street directors, all of our attention was directed towards finding resources, grant opportunities, small business loans, HR questions, best practices. If you had a business and people were coming in, what did the pandemic look like? Because at that time, the CDC, because it was during the former administration, the CDC they were behind the eight ball. All of the government entities really that I discovered were kind of behind the eight ball. So, at the grassroots level, we were just trying to guide people to those resources. I did hear back from some of our businesses that they liked getting the communication from our program because they knew who we were and who I was, and they knew that if I was sending them something that it wasn't a scam, that I wasn't just trying to make money off of them. So, the Main Street program is a trusted source of information, particularly during, times of crisis. So that was probably the biggest takeaway that I had.
That's amazing to get that kind of feedback too. And I feel that is a big part of kind of the success of the program is the fact that, we're supported by the city, but we are not an entity of the government. We are kind of this, we're a 501c3 and we are, supported by the city, but we're really, pretty autonomous in our decision making and our event planning and just all of the programming and coordination. The city supports us in a number of ways, but they're not really kind of trying to control what we do.
Right. I really think that's why Main Street is so successful is the national program has a very flexible framework, and you have to work within that framework to demonstrate that you are following their best practices. But within that framework, they have a great deal of flexibility. And then the City of Orlando's program has taken the same stance. It seems like it would be a difficult position to be in, honestly, to provide support and guidance without dictating what the preferred outcome would be. The city has done a wonderful job of allowing each of the programs to develop in ways that are natural to their constituents and to their audience. And it's been very successful. My husband and I moved here in the late 1980s, 1986 actually, from Los Angeles. And so it was a lot of culture shock, not a lot of identity. College Park was always desirable to live in. But, other than that, you had like downtown and College Park, and nothing else really seemed to have an identity other than, well, that's a commuter road to drive as fast as possible from, downtown to UCF or whatever it is. So I think the fact that all of these programs have created all of these unique identities and unique neighborhoods is just a testament to this successful nature, not only of Main Street, but of the city's kind of deft handling of each of them.
Mm-hmm. Truly, yeah. And it's, where Audubon Park is situated in Orlando, we're kind of the connectors to Winter Park, to Baldwin Park, and to downtown Orlando. So we are, as you said, sort of, some people thought of this district as just kind of the pass-through neighborhood. It's like if you're on Mills and you're trying to get to another part of Colonial or to Winter Park, this is a great place to cut through.
Right.
But, part of the mission with the Main Street organization has always been to kind of, create this atmosphere to where, the neighborhood is a destination. And I think, with all the businesses coming in, with East End coming in, and the fact that we have Lou Gardens right down the road, like, we are that destination that we've been wanting it to be.
Yeah, it's been a remarkable transformation. I've lived in the neighborhood of Audubon Park since 1990, since there was a Navy base here, and it's happened kind of in fits and starts, but it has really been a wonderful experience to see an area transform from a cut-through road to a destination, and yeah, it's been a great experience.
What was it like back then in the 90s?
It was very different. The neighborhood was very different too. When my husband and I moved in, we were the young couple on the block. I'm in my late 50s now. We had a lot of retirees from the military, so we had a lot of people on fixed income living here because it was right next to the VA hospital and the commissary and all of the services that were provided to retirees on the Navy base. The businesses tended to cater primarily to that audience. So we had like 3 barber shops. One was like a beauty parlor in like the old sense of the word, beauty parlor, and not like ironic, just like an old style beauty parlor.
Sure.
And then we had like 2 barbershops on Corinne that again were not like the full sleeve tattoo, handlebar mustache, but just like guys that just had been giving buzz cuts for many, many years. And then we had one where Park Ave CDs is now. We had a woman who ran like a women's foundations shop, which is what they used to call like bras and underwear, but for women, it was called Foundations. For those of you youngsters that might be listening to this. And she specialized in mastectomy, bras. And she actually got most of her income from, I think, grants that she would provide this service. Clearly, this was obviously way pre-internet days. And then we had the guy who I think was next door to where Park Ave CDs is now. He ran a calculator store and did calculator repairs, but I don't think he was ever there. And he, objected to, reproductive rights. So there was just a lot of flyers on the front window, his feelings on reproductive rights. And then I remember when Stardust opened up and I came in for the first time and I just couldn't believe how cool this place was. I'm like, I can't believe this is here every time I would come in. In fact, we're here at Stardust right now. It's one of my favorite places. And then B3 opened up and that was really cool. And then Park Ave CDs open. And again, I walked in and it took me a long time to stop walking into great businesses that had opened up in Audubon Park and not feel like, I can't believe this is here. This is just the coolest, most beautiful, most unique. It took a long, long time. I think when East End opened was kind of the end of my being amazed that something would open up here. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I was just talking to Kim about, choosing Audubon Park for the Lovely and how, there was no question in her mind this was where she wanted the Lovely to be. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that over time, as you were describing kind of the evolution and these businesses that have become, anchors to the community, it has made it more desirable. So people really want to be here.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I remember when the Owl's Attic opened, and Brittany, was the same thing. She was like, I really wanted to be here because they had been doing pop-ups. This was their first location. And, of course, it made perfect sense because the area at that point, had a reputation as being friendly to businesses that focus on sustainable practices, which certainly Vintage is, right there in terms of sustainable fashion. So yeah, we have businesses that seek to come here now, and I kind of regularly turn businesses away because they really want to be here, and I'm like, we just don't have the space that you're looking for, the space that you need, or the zoning that you need. So yeah, the big sea change in roughly a decade's worth of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Gideon's Bake Shop, for example, they have the second location at Disney Springs. And when the line gets too crazy there, I've heard that they kind of send people over to their flagship store here in Audubon Park. So, there's always been kind of a line at Gideon's, and now it's like that line has extended to the attractions area, which is pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, apparently if you follow, bloggers and websites that give you like the inside tips on the theme parks, that tip regularly makes the rounds for if you can't get into Gideon's in Disney Springs, well, you should just go to their original location in the Audubon Park Garden District. So, yeah, pretty great.
Yeah, and when something grows beyond the neighborhood and, is at that Disney level, like, and I think that a lot of people that do come to Orlando, specifically for Disney, if they don't come to neighborhoods like the Audubon Park Garden District, they're not truly getting the Orlando experience. It's like there's the theme park Orlando experience, and then, kind of seeing what the culture is here. And, downtown is kind of one, it's, you have your parks and things like that, but as far as the business district goes, it's kind of mostly clubs. So during the day, it's not a huge destination spot, and that's kind of where the districts have kind of filled that gap that that downtown kind of does not provide during the day.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty interesting how the various commercial districts have developed. It's kind of crazy to think about it now, but it's just because someone there happened to know about the program and, really wanted to pursue it and kind of make it happen. So, yeah.
So so you've seen the evolution of the neighborhood. Where do you see it all kind of going? Like, what is the future for Audubon Park?
It's kind of crazy. Our biggest challenge right now is the gentrification that's happening in the neighborhood of Audubon Park. Like if I were buying a house now, I would be priced out of Audubon Park. Sorry, I hate to say that. But the nice thing about it is the city is doing more with, I can't remember what they're called now, ADUs, accessory dwelling units. So we do have some of those going in to help kind of alleviate some of the housing crunch. But as far as the future of the district, once Corinne Drive is redesigned and it's calmer and it's walkable, it's bikeable, we get more of our street trees in, it will make it a better neighborhood to age in place, so that people aren't quite so car dependent, even the people that live in the neighborhood. And then, long range, I would love for this district, which does so much with sustainability and the environment, I would love for that to extend out to some of the other neighborhoods so that the city becomes more of a green and sustainable city itself. So, that's I think the next on the horizon for us.
And the timeline for the Corinne Drive revamp, I know we don't have definite dates, but do we know kind of roundabout when that would be starting and completing?
Yeah, so it is So MetroPlan did their $300,000 study a few years ago, and they made their recommendations. And they worked closely with us and with the residents and the businesses and the city of Orlando, the city of Winter Park, and Orange County government. And they're the entity that you have to be on their project priority list for anything to happen. And a couple of years ago, we finally made it on the list. So the Corinne Drive redesign is on the MetroPlan project priority list in year 5. So they work in like 5 and 10-year increments. I'm not quite sure. But we were in year 5, but it was unfunded. So nothing will happen if you're not on their list. But just because you're on their list in year 5 doesn't mean you're going to stay there in year 5, particularly if it's unfunded. So things can get bumped further down. So that's why I was so excited when the Biden administration got their jobs and infrastructure package passed, because Representative Stephanie Murphy, kind of at the behest of MetroPlan as well as City of Orlando staffers, and our organization certainly wrote a letter of support. She put in for $6.9 million for the Corinne Drive redesign. So there's funding there now. So I think we're looking at, and I need to check the list, but I think we're looking at roughly the year 2025, which is 2022 right now. We're already working on projects and programming for 2023. So yeah, I think it'll be here before we know it. The last time I had a meeting with anyone at the city, I specifically asked about the $6.9 million and what was happening with that, and they hadn't heard anything yet. But I think probably because it's going to go through MetroPlan.
Okay, and that money is not going to go away. Nobody's going to.
Yeah, no, it was an earmark. So so it's dedicated for this project. So yeah, we'll see. You can see the recommendation that MetroPlan had. If you search Corinne Drive study MetroPlan, it'll come right up. At that time, they said, well, if you start right now, it'll be a $10 million fix, but the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets as things deteriorate. So obviously there's a gap. One of the things that was on the plan is actually already happening, and that's the mid-block crossing in front of East End that the city of Orlando is paying for out of a traffic safety budget. Obviously, it's not going to be a $3 million project. It's not going to be the difference between 6.9 and the 10 million. But yeah, I think there's ways to kind of pick up some extra dollars here and there. It just kind of depends on what the final project looks like.
That's very exciting. So those decisions haven't been made. The Metro Plan was basically an advisory sort of document, and then the city is going to make its own plan once the time comes?
Yeah, I think so. So the recommendation that MetroPlan came up with is a 15% design, meaning this is in the macro what we recommend. And then the next thing will be hiring an engineering firm to come out and actually measure where every storm drain is, measure where every curb ramp is, that kind of thing. And then they will come up with kind of a to the quarter-inch plan on what it'll actually look like.
And the bonus or the benefit of the way that Corinne Drive is laid out is that, we're essentially 5 lanes. You have your turning lane and 2 lanes on each side. So rather than shutting down the whole road like they did for General Reese and Bumby, they can just have it down to 2 lanes rather than the 4 lanes.
During the construction,
construction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is exactly what they're doing with the mid-block crossing. They'll do one half of the road, and then they'll do the other half. So traffic disruption should be pretty minimal. And I know with the mid-block crossing, the engineering firm that's actually doing the installation, they were instructed, don't start until you have all of the materials. We don't want there to be any delay because something didn't come in on time. So the city's cognizant of the need to have things redeveloped, as quickly and reasonably as possible for the convenience of the businesses and the residents and the visitors that we have.
Yeah, because anybody that's been on Corinne Drive, especially as a pedestrian or cyclist, kind of knows that you're taking your own life in your hands. Here, unfortunately, the speed limit, I think, is 35 on the stretch of it, but you'll rarely see people going 35. And your office being in East End, you've witnessed and seen the aftermath of a lot of pretty heinous car accidents because of the speed and because of the way that it's laid out now.
Yeah, we know for a fact there have been endless studies done by traffic engineers and urban planners that people will drive at the fastest speed that it seems a road will tolerate. And because Corinne Drive doesn't really have a lot of intersections, and it has, as you pointed out, 5 lanes, the lanes are extra wide. It just feels like a straightaway. So people just drive far and above. I think the Metro Plan study said 76% of all cars on Corinne Drive are speeding, and a significant number of them are traveling at 55 and above. So it's just because of the design of the road. And so once it's redesigned and the lanes are narrowed, they're not eliminating lanes. It'll still be 4 lanes. There'll still be medians. They are eliminating, at least on the Metro Plan plans, the dedicated right-hand turn lanes at the East Winter Park Road intersection, which is just in keeping with like every other kind of modern intersection. It should make it safer. And I know sometimes people say, well, only one person has been killed on Corinne Drive, so it's obviously not a problem. And, obviously my answer to that is it's because more people would walk if it felt safer. More people would ride their bikes if it felt safer. So the fact that, there's quote unquote only been one death, which was late at night in a vehicle, it really doesn't tell you anything about the physicality of the road. So
no, and that statistic is surprising to me. I didn't realize that, but that's a very good thing that there hasn't been more. It's shocking to me that that's the case, but
yeah, for sure. I think it's because people can decide for themselves that it feels pretty unsafe.
Yes.
So I walk up here a lot, but I tend to do it, nights and weekends when, there's less traffic. So yeah. And, I think it's dumb that I drive my car from behind red light to my office at East End, because I rode a bike to my office exactly twice, and it just felt way too scary. And that was it. I did it twice, and I'm like, okay, I'm done.
That's all of 3 or 4 blocks, basically, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's really, really close. So, once the road is redone, I know some people are kind of concerned that it'll slow traffic down, and it will slow traffic down to closer to 35 mile an hour speed, which would be good. But I do think that it will get some people who are in cars now out of cars, and I just don't think that people necessarily think about it in those terms, but I know I certainly would if I could bike to work, safely. I certainly would.
Yeah. And there's not, Corinne Drive is 1 mile, and there is not a continuous walkway on either side for that stretch. And it seems like not too big of a task to have a pedestrian walkway on either side that connects Lou Gardens to Baldwin Park, and yet here we are.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. I have this conversation with people on a regular basis where they go, well, there's sidewalks up there. And I know that when they tell me that, I know that they have never walked on Corinne Drive. They've only driven on it, and they've seen sidewalks and just assume that they connect everywhere, and they don't. So you're absolutely right. We have sidewalks here and there. It's a patchwork. They don't connect. You can't walk the entire distance on either one side or the other without, cutting across someone's yard or walking in the street. And we have some parts that there's no ramp, so people who are in wheelchairs or have strollers there in the road, it's just not great.
So that's the future, is we're going to fix all of those problems with this redevelopment.
We are, yeah. We've a lot of people have worked on this for a very long time. So yeah, I'm super excited that this is moving forward and has funding.
Yes, which it, with the timing of Audubon Park School opening and just, the size of the school and the footprint and the amount of traffic that kind of brings and, safety concerns and that sort of thing, it seems like it, in its first few years, things have gone well. Because that was a big concern of our organization, was just, the school's going to open. Corinne, the work isn't done on Corinne yet. So,
right.
What is that going to look like as far as safety goes? And, we have the school zone signs and, from the school before, and those are active. And so far things seem to be going okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's room for improvement with Corinne Drive.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of that safety too comes from the fact that a lot of children who aren't eligible for bus service and could walk are driven, again, they're driven by their parents, because why wouldn't a parent want to drive their kid to a school if, they would have to traverse a busy road? And anyway, so it's been very safe. I think once the road feels safer and the traffic has calmed down, I think more parents will feel comfortable sending their kids, on bikes or on foot to the school, because we've got crossing guards and they do a great job. It's kind of everywhere else that I think makes parents a little nervous right now.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And what kind of changes have you seen in the neighborhood from, obviously the traffic aspect, but with the school opening, how do you think that's affected the neighborhood?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So both of my kids went to Audubon Park Elementary.
The old school?
Yeah, the old school. And I remember when OCPS wanted a half-penny sales tax increase to pay for renovations in addition to building additional schools because of the continued growth. For us, it was a no-brainer. Obviously, we should all pay a half a cent, particularly when it came to updating older schools, right, which Audubon Park was. So we were in favor of that, voted for it, told everyone we knew, vote. Our kids need better schools.
Yeah.
And so they ended up closing it down as part of this restructuring of all of these schools. It was a swing site, so I remember one year, Aloma Elementary, they came here for a year while their school was renovated. And anyway, it operated as a swing site for a number of years, and then it closed down entirely, and it became a storage facility for OCPS. And I just didn't realize how much I would miss having an elementary school or a school of any kind in our neighborhood. Mm-hmm. The Audubon Park School officially was in Baldwin Park at that time. So what is now Baldwin Park Elementary had the name and the faculty of Audubon Park, but Baldwin Park just felt like it was in another state. Mm-hmm. It's just far enough away that you don't have that engagement from families or their kids. You don't have the PTA. You don't have children doing things in your neighborhood. I don't know. I missed it far more than I thought I would. And I think of all of the other neighborhoods, particularly Black neighborhoods from years ago that, when the nation got into busing, a lot of times, that just meant that, Black kids got bused to white schools, not the other way around. I just never really thought about it in that way before, that it would be a negative for a neighborhood to not have their local school. But anyway, So they built this brand new K-8. Now we've got great administration there. They have a wonderful principal. They're wonderful to work with, and the entire staff there is very well thought of by parents. And so people were very excited to send their kids there. It's kind of interesting. A couple of years ago, after the new K-8 opened, I, for some reason, asked, I don't remember now why I wanted the information, but I asked about free and reduced lunches, because I know when it was Audubon Park Elementary, so this was, you're talking back in the 90s, I guess, and through the 90s, more than half of the student body at that time got free and reduced lunches. And I was like, well, how does that compare now? Probably the same, right? And whoever I was asking, they were like, oh, Jennifer, it's not going to be half, And so they got the numbers for me, and of course it wasn't half. It's a tiny fraction, right? That get free and reduced lunches now. So there's definitely a demographic shift that's happening kind of overall in the area, which you can kind of feel, the people, the retired military on fixed incomes that I mentioned earlier, seems, it seems a much smaller percentage of the residents of Audubon Park. So yeah, we went for years really without any young families, and now we're seeing a lot more young families with kids coming up again in the area. So definitely an area that's on the resurgence, both in terms of like families, young couples starting out, and obviously the income level has risen for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I think that, part of what's happening, during the pandemic, when people started working more from home, and people didn't have to be going into the office. They could kind of do their job from anywhere. And the way that people experience the pandemic up north, especially during winter seasons, and kind of seeing how in Florida we're like outside all the time. So we kind of were able to weather that thing, a little bit better than some other places, because being kind of trapped indoors and not being able to go in public spaces. I think a lot of people from the north have moved down to Florida, or, are in the process of doing that. And so property values in general seems like have skyrocketed in this area and in Florida in general. Maybe part of that, I mean, I haven't studied it too closely, but it seems like that's an element of it at least.
Yeah. I'm not sure what's going on with home prices around here. It seems kind of crazy, but like you said, I think it's mirrored in a lot of parts of the country right now. Not sure why.
It seems like there is like a correction is coming.
Oh, yeah.
And hopefully it's not as big as the 2008 one.
Yeah.
Was it 2008? 2018,
it was, yeah.
2018, I don't know.
2007, 2008, the Great Recession?
Yeah.
2007,
what is time
2008.
anymore?
Yeah.
I've lost my place in time at this point. So
that's right.
But yes, so yeah, property values are kind of changing the area in ways, and there's not really, this is a desirable place to live, but if people can't buy here, if it just kind of changes the way that, who's going to be in the neighborhoods too. And
yeah, it's kind of an interesting question. Things are either, neighborhoods, shopping areas, whatever it is, they're either on the rise or on the decline. Even if you kind of maintain the status quo, it's like with the situation with Corinne Drive. I'm like, even if we did nothing, doing nothing just means it's degrading, right? Mm-hmm. Doing nothing just means it's getting worse over time because there have been no improvements. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is to the kind of pricing that prices out the people who, 20 years ago moved in and they were artists, they were graphic designers, they were hourly workers, just kind of a kind of a broad mix of people, that definitely does change the character of an area. I'm not quite sure what the answer is, although whenever an ADU comes up, I'm always in favor. I'm like, yes, that would be good because it provides another price point so that you can like keep people in a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't think anyone's figured that out yet. We talk about it a lot in Main Street circles.
Right.
How can we combat the downside of being successful? we don't know.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, but also, I have friends who are shopping for homes, and I would love for them to be my neighbors. And
yeah,
I think it hurts kind of the diversity of an area as well. I think that, you want a place to be for anyone who wants to be there and wants to be part of it, and that is kind of changing drastically.
Right. I think that's particularly true in a situation where people want to live in an area because it reflects the lifestyle they want to have, or it reflects the values and the way they live their lives. People make all sorts of decisions on where they want to live for all kinds of reasons. And I know, having spoken to a lot of people that have moved in here post the creation of the Main Street program here, that they're drawn to kind of the community-minded nature of the neighborhood, the sustainability efforts. So, yeah, if people want to be a part of that, you definitely want to encourage that.
Yeah, and I think just that the metaphor of this neighborhood as a connector neighborhood, it's like geographically we are a connector, but also I think with the community, this is a very welcoming place for everyone who visits.
Right.
And I think that's something that business owners and residents here really pride themselves on, is that, the experience for customers is very positive. And so you see a lot of repeat customers, you see a lot of regulars. And I mean, we've definitely noticed with the Monday night market here at Stardust, the Audubon Park Community Market, which we see you at quite a bit. And thank you for being a supporter. The traffic has, definitely picked up since the pandemic. There was a big lull and people weren't really sure if they could be outside in public spaces. And it has really picked up. And with Gabby bringing the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutritional program, I mean, we have customers from all over at the market now. And it just, I think having events like that, I mean, that's a weekly event. We have a lot of programming with the organization, with the Main Street. It brings people to the neighborhood that haven't necessarily been here before. And then, they kind of make a regular thing of it. And we have Lou Gardens. So it's like there's definitely a lot of ways that you can visit and spend the day here and, have plenty to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's something that I know when our organization does programming, we, try to make things as inclusive and free so that there's not a financial barrier for people. We try to find a way to pay for things through sponsorships and donations and that kind of thing so that people can just enjoy a nice experience without there being a financial barrier.
Yeah, and that's such a rare thing, and luckily our organization runs pretty lean. We do rely on our sponsors and and our customers, and we have different ticketed events, but that's always kind of been part of the mission, is just to make it as inclusive as possible and accessible for everybody.
Yeah, I think we could do a lot as a society to build community, that people feel a connection to their neighbors. I think a lot of times we get caught up in our social media silos and the news and the media that we consume. So I think doing a lot of community events that are free, that are relaxed, and you can just meet your neighbor, or you can meet someone who owns a business who happens to live in the neighborhood, or lives, just a couple of miles away, can go a long way to increasing people's contentment and life satisfaction. It creates greater trust, in your life and in your environment. So it's not always just about selling a happy hour. Mm-hmm. Although do check out the happy hours here.
We do have great ones.
We do.
I mean, the retail shops here are very unique and very wonderful. It's just like, we're so lucky to have the mix of shops that we have.
We really are. We have a lot of retail here, and that I never really thought about all that much. And then I would get together with fellow Main Street directors, and I would go, "Why don't we do X?" And they were like, "You're the only one that has any retail, and you have a lot of retail. I have none. I have all hair salons or whatever it is." So, we're really lucky in that we have a lot of businesses that are destination businesses. We have more than our fair share of businesses that if that was your only destination business, it would be a place worth visiting overall. And we have like a ton of them. So, we've got Stardust, and we've got Park Ave CDs, and we've got Red Light, and we've got East End Market and all of the shops in there, and Lou Gardens, the botanical garden down there. So, yeah, in addition to, a lot of businesses that offer sustainably made goods or vintage, which is, like I said, the ultimate sustainable fashion is the piece that's already here. We've got a consignment shop and
hidden gems like R. Nichols. What a fantastic talent, and just to be based here is like he was in the R. Nichols was in that list of the first time I went in, and I was like, I can't believe this is here. This is so beautiful, and it's beautiful in a way that like Stardust is beautiful in its very organic, colorful, vibrant way. And the R. Nichols shop is beautiful in that beautiful, posh, high style boutique that you would go into in like Soho or something, Totally.
Some very sophisticated big city neighborhood.
And I think shops like that, I mean, truly kind of elevate the neighborhood. And when Kelly's moved in and it has caught on and since grown into, all these locations, it's like, I'm just used to seeing a line there, and like it's just like a way of life now. Like people go to Kelly's, and Sugar Dough is fantastic. Like these, and that bookshop, the
Joybird.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
It is beautiful. They've got a great selection, and then they do movies in there, and they do like craft pop-ups. I did a needle punch class last month. It was so relaxing.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It was just intense enough that I had to concentrate on what I was doing, but it didn't feel like a job. It was it was a great experience. Wonderful, wonderful business, a great addition. And they're actually our third bookseller in the neighborhood. So we've got Joybird, which is an actual bookstore with like lots of books in it. And then you can actually buy used books in Dear Prudence. They've got the last time I think I was in, they had a copy of Jane Eyre, I think, and they have more of the classics or things that I think like they're just personally interested in. And then of course you can get new books at Park Ave CDs. So
and
3 booksellers.
The Lovely also has books.
That's
and
true.
Stardust also has books.
5 booksellers.
And we used to have Book Market in East End.
Yeah.
So a former bookseller, but we're gonna bring books back. Right?
They're happening.
I mean, the internet can't last forever, right? I think it's just a fad.
That's what Homer Simpson said.
Yeah. And everything on The Simpsons comes true. So
it does.
Get your books.
Yeah.
Get them now and get them from Audubon Park.
That's right. It's funny.
So, in closing, anything else on your mind that you'd like to talk about?
Not in particular, although today's Earth Day.
Oh, happy Earth Day. Yes.
And thank you. Happy Earth Day to you, too. And I was going over the list of all of the things that we've done that would fit under Earth Day. And I really feel like every day it's Earth Day in the Audubon Park Garden District. We've done a lot. We've installed an urban bird sanctuary at Songbird Park a few years ago. We've got our pollinator pathway going. We're getting ready to do a refresh on that closer to summer during the rainy season. Right now we're concentrating on our pollinator demonstration garden in alley number 3, which is going great.
And tell us where alley number 3 is located.
So alley number 3 is the alley behind our West Corinne Plaza, between like Red Light and the Lovely and the Audubon Park School there. So that it's officially designated as alley number 3. It never really had a name. It's just kind of internal, because everything has to have a name. So the city of Orlando, I was like, well, what's the name? And they were like, alley number 3. And I'm like, okay, that's an awful name. And they were like, whoa, it's not a name. It's, you can name it something else. Here's the process for naming it. And so it went on the back burner, and then we had the pandemic, and I definitely didn't do anything with trying to rename this alley. And so I just kept calling it alley number 3. And then internally, the board kept calling it alley number 3. And then I fell in love with the name.
It is kind of cool, right? I mean, it just sounds like a club.
Yeah. I love the name now. And then we kind of started the process again of turning it into an public event space, because we lacked that. And then the city reached out at one point, and they were like, so about that name change. And I'm like, hold on. We love alley number 3, and we're not changing it. And they were like, well, that's fine. But so we've got the first half of our pollinator demonstration garden. And then as soon as the bench that was spec'd for us by a volunteer landscape architect comes in, we'll finish it, and it'll have a lending library, so there's more books for you. And
books everywhere.
We'll have an art box that someone sponsored for us with giveaways. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, the mural projects, the different, I don't know, just the beautification efforts in this neighborhood are pretty astounding. I mean, Corinne Drive isn't the nicest road to look at. Eventually it will be, but I feel like the other pieces that we can have an effect on, we are, and then the road will catch up someday. For
sure, yeah. The art and the plantings, I was going over some of my records. So, we've planted over 2,000 plants in the area, from trees down to perennials and annuals. It just takes a while for those multi-million-dollar projects to catch up to your, $20 projects. So, but it's getting there.
Well, that's the thing about a grassroots effort, right? It's what you can afford. It's what you can have an impact on. And, I think that's what inspires people about the organization. And we have a fantastic board of directors and a fantastic executive director.
Thanks.
That, I think just finds ways of making things happen.
Yeah, and we really have wonderful donors as well, because we are small. Our best donors are actually residents, which is very unique for Main Street. It's usually, a bank, writing like a large check, and we just get a lot of small donations. I mean, we get the larger donations too, but for the most part,
we accept all donations.
Yes,
from anyone.
Yes,
but people who are invested, are investing, and that kind of makes a difference too, right?
Yeah, you have people that just believe in the work and the kind of community that we're helping to shepherd along. I don't even want to say that we're building it, because it's such a collaborative effort among everyone who is invested here. But it's just a very special community with wonderful people that are making it happen.
Truly. That's beautiful. Well, Jen, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
And the website where you can direct people to is helloapg.com. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
And Instagram?
And Instagram is hello.apgd. And our Facebook is also hello.apgd. And our Twitter, which there's very little content there, but there is a little bit, does not allow a dot, so it's just helloapgd is our Twitter handle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast, is brought to you in part by Stardust Video and Coffee, Audubon Park's beloved neighborhood cafe, bakery, bar, and meeting place, located at 1842 East Winter Park Road. We are also sponsored by Red Light Beer Parlor and Brewery. Founded in 2005, Red Light is widely known as the source for world-class imports and microbrews, a wide selection of natural wines, plus award-winning beers brewed in-house. A full kitchen is in the works with an amazing menu by Chef Jess Tantalo, so stay tuned for that. Located at 2810 Corinne Drive, please check out Red Light for all things beer and wine, and soon food. Our theme song is by Christopher Pierce, and special thanks goes to Trey Hester for mixing the episode and for all of his help in making this podcast a reality. We do hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, please click subscribe and leave a review if you'd like. We'll see you next time.